Everywhere you look online these days, there is so much information about how good working holidays are, inspiring us to travel and get out there and see the world. But is it all it's actually cracked up to be? Today we're going to talk about 5 things no one is actually telling you about working holidays that aren't all that great. Heading on a working holiday might just be one of the best things you ever do, and it is such a great way to see the world, travel for an extended period of time, and really embrace a new culture and way of life. As with everything in life, working holidays come with their own sets of challenges and pitfalls, and I post a lot on my YouTube channel and my Instagram about how amazing this way of life is, and I truly do think so. But today I want to talk to you about a couple of the things that are definitely the less glamorous side of it and things to consider before you actually head on this journey. Before we get into it today, I want you to quickly pause this video and let me know where you're at. Have you already moved overseas? If so, let me know what's something that you wish you knew beforehand. Otherwise, if you haven't moved overseas and you're contemplating this, what's something that you're nervous for or that you want to know more about? I'm really interested to see if we overlap in the things that I'm going to share today and what you're thinking. In saying that, let's get into it, and here is 5 things that I wish I knew before going on a working holiday and that people aren't telling you. For number 1 today, we're going to talk about how lonely it can get. The excitement of going on a working holiday is such a thrilling experience, but it can also be really challenging. Missing friends, family, familiar surroundings is such a common experience, especially when people first arrive, and it's so normal, but it also takes a really big toll, and it's important to find healthy ways to cope with that. For so many of us, the build-up of moving overseas is such a long time coming. Visas can take months to come through. This decision may be years in the work for you even, and that build-up and that excitement over a long period of time is really great until you get here and you settle down and everything you've been building up towards is done, right? You've achieved it, you've moved, and now you actually have to face the reality of meeting new people, starting alone from scratch. I know so many people, myself included, that as soon as they've gotten to their destination, they've had that breakdown, that feeling of, oh my God, what have I just done? And start questioning everything. Did I make the right choice? Have I just made a huge mistake? How am I actually gonna do this? And it's really scary, and that feeling alone can be super isolating. Now that does usually pass pretty quickly. The more people you meet, the more you get into an established routine of life in your new location. It does get easier. And I think a lot of people should be prepared to go through that kind of emotional journey from the minute you get on the plane into your first week or 2 of living in a new place. There's so much you go through. On top of that, if you're moving to the other side of the world, your family are on a completely different time zone to you, and you don't have immediate access to the people you love when you need them like you did before. Another thing I think that a lot of people don't consider when considering loneliness is that I genuinely don't think it matters that much whether you come by yourself or with someone else. Now, I came with a partner to Canada, and I think that does have a lot of benefits. But on the other side of things, I do think it comes with its own unique challenges. Coming to a new place as a couple, it almost felt like we were holding each other back at the start, and that was a really confronting thing to experience in your relationship. Now, I'm not saying coming in a relationship is better or worse. I just think it's different, and it still, even though you have someone, it still can get really lonely when you feel like you don't have other friends outside of the relationship to draw on, because you've gone from a world where you have independent lives at home to now being in this one little bubble in your new place. On the flip side of that though, I know so many people who do working holidays are coming completely solo, and absolute props to you. I think that is such a strong move to make, and it's scary and it's bold, and you have to fully rely on yourself for everything. There is no longer someone there to motivate you to get out and go to a bar and meet people, or to chat to people at work, or to put yourself out there again and again and again until you build those connections. And I think that alone is a very independent but scary feeling, and it's the best and worst thing at the same time. Regardless of what situation you come in, I will say building a social circle takes time. So give yourself a little bit of leeway, make those connections, but you're only ever gonna get out of a situation what you put into it. For number 2, I swear the admin just never stops. Moving overseas is not simple. I swear there's so much to organize before you leave a country, and then so much again to organize once you get to a new country. On top of that, navigating the legalities of getting a visa to come to a new country can be really challenging. Some visas can be quite simple, but if it feels overwhelming or just too confusing, getting a company like the Working Holiday Club or a lawyer to help you out is not the worst idea. Once you land, all the basic requirements of getting like banking information, phone plans, tax information, rental agreements, everything like that can take a bit of time. Some things are super straightforward, and if you're prepared and you have a list and you know exactly what you have to do, that would definitely help. But I swear it's a lot. And I think at the moment we're going through a process of extending our visa and having to do it all again. I swear it's just 10 times harder. And it's fine and it's life, but it is a lot of work. For number 3, the financial reality of a working holiday can be pretty bleak. The longer that we've been in Canada, the more we're starting to actually feel the effects of life here financially compared to life in Australia. Coming from a country like Australia, the wages in Canada are really hard to adapt to. They're really quite different, even though the pricing on things is pretty comparative. Minimum wage here is truly just the bare minimum, and work in a tourist town can be really unreliable. If you're going into a set salary position, this section does not apply to you. But if you're going into a casual, seasonal, or even full-time job, we've found that our hours have just never been guaranteed. For some context, I have a full-time job and I work 5 days a week almost every week. Now I find that my salary, or what I get paid out with my wage, will cover my rent, my car payments, and my bills. It doesn't leave any room for much more than that though. I rely on tips to be able to actually afford my day-to-day life, any travel, groceries, things like that. Now, I do not work a full 40 hours a week because there simply is not the work available for me. If you're working a more consistent job, you might have a little bit more money to play with. But I do think it is really challenging. And for the most part, the whole time we've been in Canada, we have only really been able to live paycheck to paycheck, or we are able to save up enough to go and do a trip or do the holiday part of our working holiday, right? And we don't actually have any built up savings from living here. Now, don't get me wrong. I fully stand by the perspective that I would rather live paycheck to paycheck in a country where I'm happy, I'm living my best life and I'm loving it, compared to being on a full-time salaried position in a place that I don't want to be, right? But it is really challenging and you absolutely need to have enough savings to fall back on. Otherwise, this experience is just going to be nothing but stressful for you. Number 4 is going to be drinking and party culture. When I think of a working holiday, I think of snowboarding and hiking and spending your days out in nature doing things and meeting people and going to work at nights, right? For me, I never really actually considered the effects of drinking culture, drug culture, and party culture that is in some of these working holiday towns. Now, when we first moved to Banff, we went out a lot. I remember Tristan and I used to live for Sunday fun days. We loved going to high rollers. It was really such a great way to get out, to meet people. It seemed like everyone was going out multiple times a week. And it's so easy to do in a town where there's really no set days. Weekends are not weekends for most of the people who work here, and everyone has different days off. So every day is just like the weekend, which is great. I love it. But it does mean it's so easy to get roped into living a lifestyle that maybe you didn't live at home. After a couple of years in this town, the amount that we go out or we party or we drink has definitely slowed down a lot. But when I think about how I used to be back at home, I still drink a lot more than I would like to. The really harsh reality of that, though, is that if you don't drink and you don't go out and you don't, embrace that nightlife at all, you don't meet people as much. You don't see people that are, on that level of friendship where you're not hanging out one-on-one, but you love catching up with them and you love seeing them and they're friends, but you're not kind of at that intimate friendship level. And I think those connections are still really important to maintain. And in a town like Banff and in other working holiday towns, it's really hard to think that if you don't drink, your social interactions are so much less than what they could be. But also on the flip side, if you do drink and you do go out a lot and you are meeting people all the time, that can be great on one hand, but also really draining emotionally, financially, physically. So I think there's a flip side to both, and I think you need to be prepared to potentially have somewhat of a healthy balance. Ultimately, I'm not saying that this culture is either good or bad. I think it's a really personal opinion, but I do think it's something to be mindful of and to consider when you are planning to move somewhere. Finally, for number 5, reverse culture shock is real, and let's talk about that. Just as adapting to a new country and a new way of life is challenging, so is going home, right? I read this really great post on Instagram recently, and to summarize it, this girl was talking about how hard it is and how no one talks about what it's like when these experiences are over. If you've ever traveled solo, or you've gone on a big trip, or something that feels like it's life-changing has happened to you, and you go home and you feel like everything is still the same, no one's changed, you've moved on, you've grown as a person, but no one else kind of has. You know, that can be a really isolating feeling, and transitioning back to a lifestyle you once had can be really tough. Now, obviously, we haven't moved home yet, but just as transitioning to Canada was hard, I imagine moving back to Australia will be too. It's really interesting, and I think you see your home country in different eyes once you leave it. Now, I think that's the best part about travel, right? You broaden your spectrum and you do different things and you meet people. Once you leave your home country, everyone that you love continues going about their lives, right? They're not waiting for you to come home. And to be super duper blunt, you're not a part of their routine anymore. And maintaining friendships and connections from the other side of the world is really hard. Now, we've had a few people that we've held really close over the years, and we message occasionally and we send life updates, but anyone who's not in that really tight inner circle kind of falls away. You lose connections with anyone who's like an acquaintance or a casual friend. And I know now that Tristan and I have more friends in Canada than we do in Australia, hands down. So not only do you have to start again when you move to a new country, but you might have to start again or really rebuild some connections when you go home too. As much as you can, I would recommend trying to maintain friendships with people you have at home, because they love watching you, and you probably have so many quiet supporters who are just rooting for you. And it's nice to reach out to those people too and let them know that you still care about them, even though you're off doing crazy, fun, adventurous things. Now, the fact that going home might not be the best experience after coming and doing something as amazing as a working holiday is absolutely not a reason not to do it. But I don't think anyone considers, what things are going to be like after the fact, after your 2 years are done, etc. Now, that felt like a really heavy video today. If you know me and if you've been following me for a while, either on YouTube or on Instagram, if you don't, you should, you'll know how much I talk about the positives of working holidays, the amazing things that come with living abroad or traveling to new places or meeting new people. And I truly do think it is the best thing in the world. Nothing in life is easy, and everything does come with its challenges, and these are some of the challenges you get on a working holiday visa. I think we have 2 options in life. You either work to live or you live to work. And for me, if you want to work just to live, working holidays are the best thing. You can live a life of your absolute dreams, right? We snowboard, we hike, we have lake days, we have the best natural environment that we live in, and so many amazing people who are here because they want to be as well, that it is so nice. And I still work at night and I still make my money enough to pay for everything, but work is just that. Like, it's just what I need to do to get by and to pay for things. And it's fun sometimes too, don't get me wrong, but it's nice just to have a job where you go, you do your job, and then you continue on with your life. And I think you can have the best experience ever on a working holiday, and you'll meet the best people. So I hope this video hasn't scared you off. Moving overseas might be the best thing you ever do. Just take the bad that comes along with it, and you're gonna be a better person because of it. If you have any questions or any other suggestions of what things people should know before moving, drop them in the comments. Let's chat. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.